All right, 2 weeks in a row on location across the street. So, we traveled a long way for this one at Occam's Razor with Chef Phil Mayo, and as Dustin likes to call him, Vincent. He wanted to have his own coworker Aaron moment, so we'll talk about that in a bit. But Phil, first of all, thank you for having us over here.
No, thank you for having me to do the podcast with. This is awesome.
So let's address the elephant in the room right now. You're not from Red Deer. I'm going to say that.
What? I've said 10 words and you've already picked that out. Yeah. So I'm from the UK. I'm from England, Southwest England in particular, a county called Gloucestershire. Moved to Cheltenham when I was 22, 23 for work. It's in a place of natural beauty called the Cotswolds. Rolling hills, pretty fudge box looking stuff, like what you imagine of the UK. That's what it is. It's not the concrete jungle and the chavs. It's that. So it's lots of pretty stuff there.
I'm picturing Hogwarts right now, Phil. How close am I?
That's, without the castles, but with the landscape and without the owl delivery service, you're basically there.
Okay.
Like the train ride to Hogwarts is what it looks like.
Okay.
That's what I'm picturing.
Yeah, realistically. Yeah, it's that sort of rolling hills and all that like pretty stuff that everyone just gushes over, basically.
So what brought you to Red Deer? I think you said you've been here about a year and a half now.
Yeah, so I've been here about a year and a half. I moved for love. Yeah, I know. Everyone cue it.
Did you have it or to find it?
I had it. I was living in the UK and my girlfriend was studying law in the same town that we lived in. We started dating for a year and a half and she had a job lined up in Red Deer. She's born and raised here. And she said to me, she's like, I'm moving back to Red Deer, Alberta. Do you want to come? So it took me a couple of Googles. I had to look up Red Deer. First off, that just brings you animals. Secondly, I Googled Alberta because no one's taught me provinces. I thought Canada was just Canada. Like I didn't realize you guys are all like split up into different provinces. So I Google all the provinces and I Google Alberta and it comes up with Calgary, Edmonton, Canmore and Banff and the Rockies. And I was like, this is gorgeous. Sign me up. This looks amazing.
Oh, man.
And I was like, yep, set, golden. And as we were landing, I looked out the plane window in Calgary and I could see the earth curve. And I was like, I was promised rocks and a lot of them. I don't see what I was promised. It's just flat. And as we're driving from Calgary to Red Deer, Natalie, my now fiance, she points out the window and she goes, see those really small triangles way off in the distance? Those are the rocks that you saw. And at that point, I realized that Alberta as a province is 5 times the size of my home country.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's huge. It's one of the hardest things I've had to wrap my head around is just space.
Yeah.
Because in the UK, like everyone's built on top of each other. Like we're all quite condensed. While here, everyone has a good sized yard. There's just like from the drive from here to Sylvan even. We had to pull over the first time because it's the first point in my life I saw horizon to horizon with nothing in the way. At the tender age of about 25, I was like, I've never witnessed this. Like I've lived in Europe all of my life. I've just seen buildings and skyscrapers for most of it. And now it's just nothing. And it was quite refreshing. It's kind of cool to see. I can actually prove that the earth is round because I've seen it dip off the edge at a farmer's field.
Take that, flat earthers.
I wonder
That's
how many
me getting a lot of comments in about 2 weeks' time from a society somewhere.
So Dustin and I met with you about a week ago now because you reached out to us, wanted to do some fun stuff with us with the podcast. And again, Dustin's coworker, Aaron's story, he's just hanging out at the bar drinking his beer from Door Tender right now because I'm sure he didn't want this story to come up. But we were having lunch with Phil and then going to Saks Thrift Ave to do an interview that night with Vincent. And Dustin goes in right away, just his confident Dustin self, and goes, "Oh, it's nice to meet you, Vincent." I was like, "Oh, yeah, Dustin, that's not Vincent." And I got to tell you, that is one large face to go completely red because it did. But now, Dustin, you know the difference.
You should have just played along and then revealed it in this interview. And that way for the full week, he would have been thinking you're Vincent the whole time.
There was a part of me, like, as I got to the table and Dustin said Vincent, I thought I got the wrong table of guys because there was another table of 2 guys in the corner and I was like, I'm at the wrong table. Yes, Vincent, and I'm here for...
But one of the things we learned, you too. Actually, we learned a little bit about red deer from you at that lunch, because since you've moved here, you've really taken in everything there is to know about red deer and really trying to learn the city, which I think we can all take a little bit of a lesson from you on that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's like ADHD or whatever, but I've always liked to hyper focus on a topic. So food was one for years. And as soon as I wanted to move to Red Deer, I started focusing on the history, like the architecture, everything of like historic downtown, like all the little signs you have out everywhere. I've read most of them at this point. If they had trading cards, I would have collected them. I'm probably going to get a tattoo of the old train station at the bottom here at some point in my life. Like,
where are you going to get that tattoo?
I feel like a full
on his
back
caboose.
piece.
Oh, yeah.
No, because then you could, like, from downwards, you could just have like a train track, and then it can go over the shoulder, and then just all of historic downtown down the front. It would work.
You should see if the city will sponsor that tattoo for you.
I mean, realistically, on Ross Street patio, if they didn't do music for one day and I just got a full body piece out in the sun,
there'd be a crowd.
Yeah, I mean, as long as I get some money off my city tax for the next year through advertisement, I'd be down.
You'd be a walking billboard. So
yeah, but I'd have to be shirtless, so there's a problem for everybody else.
No, I'm sure. If the tattoo's as good as you're making it out to be, I'm sure your body would work for it just fine.
Yeah. If anyone can teach you how to be shirtless as much as possible in public, it's Ryan Lund. So
yeah, I can give you a couple
hands.
tips. Step 1, drink. And that's it.
Step 2, wear a flamingo shirt.
Step 3, let nature happen.
Yeah.
So I introduced you as Chef Phil. It's not just like a cute pet name I have for you. I mean, maybe it is.
I mean, now I want it to be at this
it's
point.
Both. Yeah. You're in my phone as Chef Phil. So
Does your fiance call you Chef Phil?
No, I've had one of those rules that like I'm not called chef outside of this building, and even in this building, it makes me cringe a little bit. I've worked with a couple of people like through the years where they had that I'm chef in the kitchen, I'm chef in a bathing suit, I'm chef in the store, and I'm like, that's not what I want to do.
Yeah.
Like that's
weird.
It's kind of weird to a certain extent, because there's now what we call like the old guard of chefing, where you have like the Gordon Ramsays, for example. You know, people that shout at you, abuse you. I've got a scar underneath one of my lip here where I had a pan thrown up my face once.
By Gordon Ramsay.
Not by Gordon Ramsay, but someone that wanted to try and act like him at one point.
Wow.
So after seeing all of that, I kind of decided that I didn't want to go down that route for like the next young sort of workforce that would come into my kitchen, because I didn't enjoy it. So I would feel like they probably also wouldn't. So I go by Phil primarily, but Chef Phil is also a cute name. I'll take it.
I did have somewhere to go with that, and I let myself get sidetracked. But because you're a trained chef, I don't know what the terminology is, I guess, in England. But tell us a bit about your food journey, and obviously a bit of a change going from England to Canada in general.
Yeah, I mean, so I started working in kitchens when I was 15. Which was kind of illegal at the time. You're meant to be 16. So when I first went in, because I went in for a dishwashing job, and the first time the head chef looked at me, he goes, "How old are you?" And I was like, 15. And he said, "And if anyone apart from me asks," I was like, 16. He goes, "Good, you're hired." So I was
Passed the first test.
Yeah, that was it. That was the interview. So started working in kitchens as dishwasher for a few years, and then went to college in the UK to study to be a chef. I did 2.5 years of that. Also got, at the same time, an ABC degree in professional patisserie. So I'm a trained pastry chef. So we make breads from scratch, pastries, a lot of French and European influence within that. Worked a lot in the UK, bounced around from country pubs to large corporate events, wedding catering, just like dipping my toes in different ponds, seeing which one I enjoyed the most. I went from a large scale place that we did like 300 people a night to a small restaurant that we did a 12-course tasting menu for 20 people. So this tasting menu would take about 4.5 hours. And it's a marathon for the person eating it, let alone us guys like sort of preparing it and serving it. While I was there, we won the best new restaurant in the country. So that was pretty wild. Yeah. I was the pastry chef there, and that was a journey. That was fun.
Yeah.
But it was, you're doing 18-hour days, sleeping for 4 hours, and then rolling back into work. At one point, a couple of us just got like camping cot beds and just slept in the building, because you would then save the 10-minute walk and you can get an extra 10 minutes of sleep. So it was a lot full on at that point, and I sort of forged through that and went into the management side, started running a couple of pubs in the UK, ran a restaurant, sort of as a head chef role, not actually purchasing it, but just working as the management side. And then at that point, COVID happened, and sadly the hospitality sector had basically flopped. So I lost my job, and during the period between losing my job and getting my visa approved, I was just doing what everyone else did during the start of COVID, watching Tiger King, baking banana bread and making overnight oats. And it was great. But at that point, I realized that through working so much, I had no hobbies. So I just sat there one day, just staring at the clouds. And I was like, I have nothing that fills my time. So I ended up buying Minecraft, which, a couple of the guys, if you have younger kids, may understand the Minecraft, but I wasted 2.5-3 weeks. And then I realized that I have nothing to show for it apart from these digital little blocks. So I gave up on that. And then I was allowed to move to Canada because I had to have a job to enter the country because I needed to be deemed as essential travel.
Yeah.
And to actually get into the country was a whole problem. I will never go back to Amsterdam. I refuse to go back to Amsterdam. They nearly denied me entry to Canada from Amsterdam.
Just because you couldn't prove employment, or what was
it?
The
Was
reason?
So I will say now, my fiance Natalie, she's a trainee lawyer. She's doing her articles now. So she organized everything. This binder was color coded, date coded. It had everything you could ever need. And there was a flight attendant for an airline. I won't say which one, but it is in Amsterdam and it flies to Calgary.
Sunwing.
No. We can play the guess game. But
it's usually Sunwing. That's just, yeah.
I stand in the line and this guy comes up and he's like, do you have all your documentation? So yeah, here's my passport. And he goes, why are you flying to Canada? I was like, well, I have a work permit to go and get because I have a letter of employment and I have everything ready to go. He looks and he's like, but you don't have your work employment. You don't have your work permit. So you're not coming. And I was like, well, I'm kind of stood in the middle of Amsterdam, a city I've never been to before, with all of my worldly possessions on the plane and not a lot of euros, oddly enough. And he was like, yeah, you're not getting on, but Natalie can. So you two need to say goodbye. And I was like, my mind went blank. Like, do you know when you have that moment that something happens and you stare off into space and you start making 1,001 plans? Like, for me, it was stage one. How do I get to the city center? Do I jump the railings? Do I walk? Do I try and hail a cab? Natalie's fighting my corner. We walk up to the customer service desk and this lady's like, well, if the gentleman said that you can't enter, he can't enter. His word is final. And I'm still in pure silence, like mind racing at this point. And the woman looks at me at the customer service desk and she goes, do you speak English? I was like, yeah. Yes, I do. And she goes, well, I'll deal with you because it's your case. And I was like, awesome. And I'll point you to my legal representative. And I went back to being quiet again. And after a little argument between the customer service lady and the gentleman again, I was allowed on the flight. And as soon as that plane door closed, my anxiety level dipped. I was expecting like a couple of police officers to walk in and just be like, so we heard that there was a little bit of a discussion at the line back there. But no, so as soon as I landed in Canada, got the work permits, all signed, sealed, and delivered, and been here ever since.
I'm just picturing like a viral video of you like refusing to get off the aircraft and getting dragged down the aisle.
I'm
off
like
the aircraft.
starfishing,
Yeah.
like I'm wrapping my hand around someone's headrest.
You live in the airport like that Tom Hanks movie.
That was my last case idea. I was like, I can collect the trolleys, get the quarters, get a Burger King. It's all going to be fine.
Yeah.
And then I'll just take it a day at a time.
Yeah, Natalie will come back every 6 months to say hi, and you'll just hang out in the airport.
Yeah, she'll have a day trip out. We'll hang out in the airport.
Yeah.
I don't know if the airport has free Wi-Fi, so I can at least Skype. Yeah, so to put it into short, about 10 years in the industry and moved here. Ended up working in a couple of places throughout the city and then managed to get the head chef role here at Occam's Razor, where now I run the kitchen here with one other guy who helps on the weekends. We do a lot of food science, so we make our own vinegars. We do our own fermentation. We smoke our own meats. Our cheeses are made in-house. Like a lot of cool, interesting little things. that we do that we're just able to, and we just do a little bit of food science.
So coming over from the UK, what do you think the biggest difference is from the food over there to the food that you've seen here in Canada?
Are we talking Canada or Red Deer? Because I just want to be sure that we know where we're landing on this. Is it Canada or
Red Deer? I would say
let's go Red Deer.
Yeah. I would say that Red Deer has a lot of options and it has a lot of very rounded options. But I feel like the UK just has a bit more of a diversity where we would have different. I think it might be also down to the fact of like so much more history has gone into the UK. Obviously, through time and Europe being so close, we have a lot more influence and we have trade that's easier. So we get European meats, French cheeses, all of that stuff, and it's pretty cheap. Rather than here where it's more of a more expensive item just because of the distance it's got to travel.
Right.
I would think that the UK has a bit more of that diversity, but also it's a bit more affordable in that sense, just because there's less transportation costs. Mm-hmm. While in Canada, you have 2 or 3 larger distribution companies. So you have Gordon's Food Service and Cisco.
Right.
While in the UK, I was used to dealing with like farms hand-on. So like I would know a farmer in the local area. I would know a fisherman in the local area. We would have like a local company that would do all the vegetables. And we had a bit more of that rounded choice rather than just whatever is on the website, whatever can fit in the truck. And you kind of get what you get and you make it from that. So we just had a bit more diversity, realistically. Do
you find now that you're here in Red Deer, and I know probably your job here, even just looking at your Instagram page, which is pretty much food porn, like it's so nicely plated and probably,
thank you.
Again, there's us at home with half a thumb in a picture. Look at this spaghetti I boiled. I'm such a good chef. But when you're making dishes, do you ever kind of infuse both? Like, your influence from England and basically what's more, I guess here's not pub food, but again, the Canadian Americanized kind of version.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm trying to do is tie a lot of history back to food. So for example, the bread that we bake in house uses red fife flour. Red fife flour is the oldest cultivated grain in Western Canada. Cultivated in 1876, I believe, by a guy from the Netherlands called William Fife, hence the name of it.
Makes sense, yeah.
So, because William Flower just doesn't sound as good as Red Fife.
Boring,
I get where he came from with like that whole publicity side. But we try and tie a bit more like history involved. I use a little bit of that like European influence. I also did 2 years in a Japanese restaurant where we did traditional Japanese food. So there's a couple of things that I try and incorporate a little bit of a Japanese style, or the idea of Japanese food where it's 4 or 5 ingredients maximum. And they all play together and they all sing really well. So it's like a good little mix of my new life, my training of my old life, and everything that's sort of come in between all of that as well. So yeah, just like a little bit of everything. It's kind of good that I have the full creative freedom here. Like one day I came into work and I said to the guys, and I was like, I got an idea. Edible forest floor. And they looked at me and went, okay, buddy. Whatever drunk idea that was at 4 a.m, run with it. See what happens.
Edible idea, yeah.
Yeah.
When you said edible, Lund perked right up.
That was actually my next question. I got an edible cookbook for Christmas. I'm just curious, have you ever done any cooking with edibles before?
I haven't. No. And the problem is in the UK, cannabis is still very much outlawed.
Yeah.
So coming to Canada, the first time that I actually smelled cannabis outside, I was like, are the police coming? I was like, I smell the devil's lettuce, the marijuana. And Nat nudged me and she's like, it's kind of, there are shops devoted to it here. And I was like, oh yeah, completely forgot about that part. But I imagine high cooking would be pretty interesting to do. As long as you don't smoke during high cooking, like doing smoking meats infused with it as well. Yeah. You basically just turn into Snoop Dogg's house as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I guess you can also infuse drinks with edibles too. I haven't gotten that far yet, but I just, chef to chef, I thought I'd ask the question.
I knew I recognized you from somewhere, yeah.
Have you opened the chef book yet?
I haven't cooked anything from it because there's some pretty detailed instructions. So
you need help.
So far, the only thing I really cooked has been chocolate chip cookies. and muffins.
And by cooked, you mean mix the pre-made batter. So actually, Phil, you can
You took
settle.
the dough
Oh.
boys, stuck an edible in it, and then baked it.
I got it done.
Yeah.
I got the ingredients, I made it, and then I ate it. Mission accomplished.
So Phil, you can actually, speaking of ingredients, because this has been an argument. So this was, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years ago now. Lund comes in telling me, hey, I'm going to cook fettuccine Alfredo tonight. And he pulls a can of whipped cream, like the spray can whipped cream, out of the fridge and looks
Like
at
the
me and
sweetened
goes,
stuff you put
"Yes."
on hot chocolate.
Yeah. And he looks at me and goes, I don't think I got the right thing. I said, no, you didn't. You need whipping cream. That's the end product. And he goes, no, I think it's the same thing. And still probably to this day would argue with me that it is the same thing for Alfredo sauce.
Was there like a hint of vanilla that came with it as well? Like it was kind of
Yeah.
sweeter than it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like it's a spray
It's like a
aerosol.
dessert. It's like a dessert.
It's already whipped.
Oh,
But
It's delicious.
yeah,
I imagine on its own, but maybe not with like
Yeah.
the pasta involved.
Oh, no.
so Ted
There's a
would,
difference between whipping cream
Yeah.
and whipped cream.
Mhm.
which is the dumbest thing in the world.
Well,
like it's-
present and past tense.
Yeah. There's so many words in the English language. They could have easily used a different word to describe what ingredient it was or how it was
I just
prepared
can't believe
or
you're
to be prepared.
35 years old and didn't know the difference.
I mean, I don't want to defend him too much here because that is a
No,
different level.
go ahead and jump in here, Phil.
There are some English words of food that didn't make it across the ocean that is very different here. So you've got stuff like eggplant is aubergine, zucchini is courgette, arugula is rocket. I remember the first place I worked, we were like one of the first times in the weeds where we're pretty busy, and I said to one of the guys, I was like, "Can you get me aubergine and courgettes out the fridge?" And he looked at me like I just spoke to him in Spanish. He was like, "What are those?" So I held them up, and he was like, "Buddy, eggplant and zucchini." I was like, this is going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
Do you ever screw with like young trainees too and just make up ingredients or make up tools to go grab out of the cupboard?
Oh yeah, we've sent kids to get confit salmon legs, chopped flour. That was a good one to stretch the gluten. I got one kid to whisk water till it thickens because that's how you make ice. You got to whisk it till it thickens and then pour it in the mold and freeze it. And this guy was like bright red face, sweat dripping, and he was gunning for it. And I was like, "You're nearly there, buddy. I can see it. Like, just keep going." We sent one guy to maintenance to ask for a long wait for the spirit measurer. So he walked in, went, I've been asked to get a long wait. And they're like, "Yeah, go sit down." And they went to lunch.
Oh no.
So they came back like an hour later and he's like, I'm still after that long wait. And they were like, "You had it." And he came back into the kitchen and he was like, "I hate every single one of you."
You also, if you run out of kitchen ideas, you can make them water all the fake plants. We used to do that too. So going back to, because again, when we're talking about whipped cream, one thing I learned this week, you talk about how overseas words are different. Again, I follow a lot of Instagram, like the food one, the reels now that are people do the 1 minute recipes and stuff.
Yeah.
And one is this British lady who does a lot of desserts, and I keep seeing double cream. I'm like, what the hell's double cream? And it is whipping cream, like it's heavy cream. So it's all.
Yeah, so table cream is single
it doesn't
cream.
get you off the hook.
Table cream is single cream to us, and then whipping cream is double cream.
Yeah.
And then we have skimmed, semi-skimmed, and full fat milk, which is just the percentages that you guys use.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, and 3.25 or whatever it is. But yeah, there's like that also big difference as well. And also just the price of cheese.
It's crazy.
I can't believe how expensive cheese is. It's one of those things that it kept me awake at night for a few nights one day. Because I was like, I remember getting huge blocks of cheddar for like the equivalent of $25.
Wow.
And now I can't get a pack of pre-sliced Edam cheese for that. I just couldn't believe it.
Yeah,
But I also know that I'm getting old at that point when that's the thing that keeps me awake at night.
Yeah, but me too, but it's usually because I ate too much cheese. Yeah. But it's still,
Yeah, when I go to A&W and I get cheese on my mama burger, it just doubles the price of the burger. It's getting out of hand.
That was an awful joke.
I don't think it was a joke.
It's not. It's
I could
cheese
see
is
it in his eyes.
expensive.
There was actual
they don't
passion.
come with cheese?
No.
Oh,
You have to get it with cheese.
wow.
Sorry, you haven't been eating fast food for
It's been a week.
for a
Yeah.
whole week
Oh,
now,
I
so you're
forgot
out of-
already. Yeah.
You're out of the
Yeah,
game.
It's all out of your mind. At one point,
Yeah.
you're going to get like flashbacks. You're going to stare off into the
Oh,
distance.
I wake
and
up
just
in a
remember-
cold sweat. And, oh my God, it's gravy. What the fuck?
So I have a question about the pubs
Yeah.
in the UK. I know that they're a big deal there, and it's kind of more than just a pub. It's like a community hall, and everyone has their own neighborhood pub. So maybe just talk about kind of the lifestyle and culture around that.
Yeah, I mean, so pubs themselves, like you said, they're quite a community-based item. Especially during the 60s, the 70s, and even before that, they were the hub of the community. You would celebrate the birth of your child, weddings, wakes, everything happened in a pub. And before the time of like mobile phones, you could get hold of your husband. If you walked down the pub, you would find him. Sometimes hidden behind the bar if he didn't want to hear from you, or sometimes stood at the bar. It depends on how it's really what you're cooking at home. And it got to the point in the late 90s, early 2000s that superstores and shops were allowed to sell alcohol at a cheaper price than pubs. And also there was a smoking ban within the pubs as well. So at that point, everyone decided just to drink at home because it's cheaper. You can smoke at home. You can have your friends over for barbecues. And at one point, I believe one pub in the UK was closing every 10 minutes.
Wow.
For 7 years. It fell apart. And then there was a huge revitalization from a chef called Tom Kerridge. He done the first, what we call a gastropub. The Hand and Flowers, which is the gastropub he still owns, now has 2 Michelin stars. First pub in the world to get Michelin stars.
Wow.
And from that, there was a revitalization because a lot of chefs that didn't have the money to actually get a restaurant space were looking for a space to rent or to buy. And there were a whole bunch of pubs that already had a kitchen in the back for sale. So a lot of people made deals, and gastropubs came and sort of reopened a lot of them. And now you have the second coming of pubs in the UK now, where you can get different ones with, even the town that I lived in, we would have like a hot pizza oven in one. We would do Thai food in another. There was like a smoke barbecue, like Southwestern one. Just different pubs, just focused on different foods from different chefs. Were able to stay open and are now making a lot of business out of it. So they've had a very roller coaster sort of time.
That's probably not the first time in history, because I mean, the European countries are just so much older, right, than what we're used to. And
That's
so
right.
There's a lot of history there, and I'm sure it's gone up and down over the years.
Yeah, I mean, when you start looking at history, especially in the UK, because we're so compact, there were places where you could have, I mean, Stonehenge, for example, which is over 2,000 years old, was right next to one of the biggest motorways in the UK. So you had this very like way old prehistoric time, and then you had modern, everything just sort of interlinked. A lot of cities have castles in them. A lot of them have train stations. We still have quite a large rail network, which is something I actually found kind of hard to adjust to when moving here, where you guys can't just hop on a train and go to Calgary and Edmonton for the day. Although it's just basically one straight line. You wouldn't have to do any turns, any corners.
Oh, yeah.
You just lay down a track and you could go. But it just never came to Alberta yet.
They've been teasing us with this high-speed rail between Edmonton and Calgary for like the last 20 years. And I'm sure we're going to get it by the time before we die, but it's like 50 years away.
We just finally got a third lane for like between Crossfield and Airdrie. Like, let's not get too picky here. Let's not ask for too much.
And you know that when they construct eventually that rail network, they're going to close 2 of those lanes for the construction traffic. So you're back down to 1 lane anyway.
Yeah.
And we're going to have flying cars by then anyway, so it'll be obsolete by the time they're done it.
It would be all of us in the rail carts and all of our kids like flying over in flying cars. It's a bit like how we look at our grandparents with the internet, I imagine. And it's like, back in my day, we used to have it on the ground. And they're like, yeah.
So when we're talking about pubs, and I think especially with British food, the traditional British food, why? Who came up with some of the, we'll get into you have a game prepared actually, so I'm not going to give it some away. But I mean, just from an outsider, some of it sounds, looks, and probably tastes a little weird.
Yeah, I think the one word that would easily describe that is poverty. There was a lot of poor poverty for a lot of years, and everyone went, wow, maybe I could cook this and not die. So then dishes came from that, really. So there's a couple of dishes that when you look at it, even I sort of poke it. I'm like, but why? Like, why did you take this and go, good enough? And why has that stuck for so long? Why has that gone through history? And everyone's like, there's still enough market to make this in modern day times. It's like, but we have Uber Eats. Why do we have these things?
So you're saying if there was credit cards back then, people wouldn't be having like brown beans and black coffee for breakfast and then getting on a crowded train.
I mean, if there were credit cards back then, the whole idea of flying cars would probably be now. I feel like it would just accelerate history far too quickly. Although if you ever get the chance, like if science ever allows us to go back in time, giving somebody in the early 1900s a credit card would be hilarious to watch.
Just explaining it to them would be funny.
Yeah, explaining TikTok to them. That would be amazing. So we have this small computer. We'll go into what a computer is. Yeah. On the internet, we'll cover that in a minute. And you get to watch videos of dogs and people making food. Why? That's a good question, but we have it.
Yeah, and here's a silly little dance you can do with your friends.
Unless you're London, you just don't do it.
Yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it this year.
Yeah. So now, and speaking of British food, you came up with a list of some and a little bit where the four of us are going to give Spin Diesel a spin, and each of us is going to have to try at a later date. You're going to prepare a couple of these traditional British meals for us. And said some are okay, some are just plain not. I guess it depends.
Summer, it works. I mean, it depends on what you roll. I might have to wander into the woods to go and hunt some of these things. But apart from that, I'll have to drag carcasses back. But no, summer works.
Oh, there's plenty on highway too. You can find.
If you need to lure in any deer, Lund will come with you and just keep trying until one of them works.
Yeah, I'll call them to you.
I mean, I'm not allowed a firearm license. That's the other issue because I'm not a Canadian citizen. So I would have to go with putting them in a chokehold and seeing how well that pans out.
Yeah, good luck. I didn't know that. You need to be a citizen to get a license?
So with my work permit, there's 5 jobs that I'm not allowed to do. One is to work in a strip club, which is thankful for everyone involved.
Well, don't put words in our mouth.
I see you've looked into this, which is bold.
To work with firearms, the elderly or children, or cannabis. Because I'm only on, at the moment, I've applied for permanent residency, but I'm on a 2-year work permit.
So how, I guess going back to Red Deer, how are you finding Red Deer now that you've been here a year and a half, you've settled in, you've found a great job doing what you like to do? Again, probably a bit of a culture shock. Well, like you already said too at first, but how are you finding it now that you've started to adjust a little bit?
I mean, it's been really nice to almost have that like fresh start in a new, completely alien environment. Not completely alien, but quite alien environment. In the summer of 2019, I came with Natalie for just under 2 weeks, and we did a whistle-stop tour of Alberta. So we did Drumheller, the Hoodoos, Banff, Calgary Stampede, Edmonton, Central Alberta, and basically she worked for the tourist board without actually fully working for them. She was like, hey, look at how pretty this place is. Wouldn't you love to live here?
Just laying the groundwork at a time.
Basically.
Hey? Yeah.
But no, it's like, it's a beautiful city. I really enjoy, like, one of the big things that I took for granted in the UK, which I'm actually able to do here, is the nature trails. Where in the UK, because we're so like highly built and stuff, we would have a couple of parks within sort of a 10-minute walking distance. But here I cross a couple of streets, go down a block, and you're just in the woods. Like, there are deer running around. There's a lot of nature that comes here. It's really nice and refreshing to see. And then people actually using it as well, because that was another big thing. Everyone here is so friendly. And everyone that I walk past, everyone's like, good morning, good morning. That took me a week to get used to. Because I thought for some reason that I knew them. Because that's the only time you would do that in the UK. So I was just like, good.
You're like,
no, I don't got it.
Fred.
No.
Oh, shoot.
Buddy. But no, like, everyone's really friendly. It's been great to go from that tourist mindset where everything was new and exciting to actually having a favorite place to get coffee, a favorite restaurant, a favorite bar to watch the games. Still trying to work out what football team to pick and what hockey team to pick. Because I originally went with the Oilers.
That's good, yeah.
Okay, I was about to lean backwards in case something came at me.
It's the right choice.
That came down to, as we were pulling into the driveway to meet Natalie's dad for the first time, I looked at her, I was like, what baseball team and what hockey team does he support? She goes, Dodgers and Oilers. And I was like, great, I'm Dodger and Oiler fan. And I'm Googling as we're walking through the door what the team name is and where they're from. And I'm like, yep. Yes.
What is a Dodger?
So one thing, Dustin, I learned again when we met with you, you talked a bit about the 6 degrees of separation in Red Deer. And of course, so your fiance works at Warren Sinclair.
Mm-hmm.
So of course, our in-house, our podcast lawyer, whether he likes it or not, Louis Corvo too. So again, it's just funny all those I guess ties, and it's oh dear, again, just accidentally bringing people together and making
you're
the world
working
a
as like the
friendlier
middlemen
place.
for the city at this point. Like everyone's starting to get like put connections with each other. I mean, there's not many times I can't even walk into the grocery store and someone's like, "Hey, I know your like father-in-law's cousin's sister," and I'm like, "Awesome, how are you?" And it's like it's great to have that in a sense, but there's also it's that same thing where a lot of people say good morning to you, and I'm like, I think I might recognize you from one night at East 40th, potentially.
Yeah.
Maybe. How's it going?
And you're just like, it wasn't me. I'm so sorry for what I did.
I judge the eyes. Because if they're angry and they do it, and I'm like, that wasn't me.
Yeah.
No, that's a different British chef.
Yeah.
There's many of them in the city to go find. I can give you a list.
Have you met any other British people living in Red Deer?
There's quite a few, which I found quite nice. There's an Uber driver who's British from Leeds. One of my friends, Lucy, she works at Nevia Mia, the bridal store downtown. She's from Chester. And we actually met through working at the cooking room together.
Oh, okay.
So I was doing cookery classes at the cooking room through like British pub and like Spanish stuff or Japanese nights. And she was working there as sort of the front of house help. And then she heard my accent and we both looked at each other and went, British. So we all sort of gravitate a little bit, but there is quite a nice percentage of people. There's enough here that most grocery stores have like a little British section. So there's like my little connection to home. I can still get tea. I'm fine.
Oh yeah.
Because that was one thing I was asking friends to like send me care packages of like tea and biscuits and gravy. And I was like, just help me get through. But now it's in most stores. So I'm now pretty set.
So while you've been here, do you have a favorite Canadian dish that you enjoy to eat? Or are you still partial to all your British meals?
I mean, you can't really go wrong with the poutine. Like it's cheese, fries, and gravy.
Yeah.
I feel like you could go to any part of the world and they would do that. But here it's just, you have the cheese curds and you actually have like real gravy made on it. That's probably my favorite. But also, I'll usually only get it when I'm about 4 to 7 beers deep. And I don't know if that's like a factor on it, but I've never had it fully sober. And most times after I eat it, after a few beers, I fall asleep. So it's great.
You said you worked at the cooking room.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like doing the cooking lessons, or is that kind of like some people really like teaching, some people don't? Like, where do you sit on that? Or is it just frustrating trying to teach people how to cook?
I've always been quite a fan of teaching. And when working as like a head chef and a sous chef, we always had apprentices or young guys in. So teaching's always been quite a fundamental part. Because a lot of guys will come into a kitchen that they've never stepped in foot before. And mum does all the cooking at home. I remember one of the first times I got one of our apprentices, I gave him a couple of bags of pre-made salad, like the pre-cut salad. And I go, right, we're in a rush, quickly wash this. And he goes, okay. And he runs off. And I glance over a few moments later and I see bubbles coming from the sink. And I look and I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, well, I'm washing it. I was like, in one? He goes, well, hot water and soap, like our plates. And I stood there and it took everything in me just to be like, oh, buddy, that's not what I mean by washing it. I now know where to start the training process of us and training them through that. And then I got them to a point that they were comfortable to handle like a station for a night. They could do some slow services with just like a couple of them. And just training is a fundamental I've always really enjoyed. Just so I can, help the next sort of generation of cooks that come through and make, diversify the culinary scene of Red Deer and inspire people to, if they want to do something or if they want to learn a new skill or a new cuisine and they get to try it here first, or they travel around the world and then they come here and try something that reminds them of that. It's pretty cool.
We do have, again, we're going to do some more. So this isn't the end of your night. This is kind of the end of the interview part. But thank you for doing this, for having us here. This is a really nice, cozy area here too. And I guess I didn't turn the fireplace on, right? But
There is a button. I don't know where the button is. I handle fires at the back rather than the front. So.
Well, it's too. Yeah, I hit that one, but it's too late now, anyways. But
the magic of editing, we can put like a green screen fire or something.
Yeah, Riley can figure that shit out.
But thank you again for reaching out to us. First of all, again, Dustin and I, we were sitting there having lunch with you, and we should have had microphones on the whole time. It's really nice to talk to someone who is newer to Red Deer, and again, just showcase the different type of people we have in the city from all walks of life too. And
thank you for having me. This has been great to work with you guys, and hopefully this is the start of a beautiful friendship, and that you guys can stomach some of the stuff that I may cook you, and also enjoy some of the things I cook for you as well.
And I hope you can stomach us.
Oh dear.